Trade deficit with China fell to $48.66 billion in 2019-20 on account of a decline in imports from the neighbouring country. Now, Indian government data shows that exports to China in the last financial year stood at $65.26 billion, while imports amounted to $16.6 billion. The trade deficit was at $53.56 billion in 2018-19 and $63 billion in 2017-18. Similarly, FDI from China to India has dipped to $163.78 million in 2019-20 from $229 billion in the previous fiscal. In April, India tightened FDI norms coming from countries that share a land border with it. Now, as per the new FDI policy, a company or individual from such countries can invest in any sector only after getting government approval. All right, if I can go back to my guests one last time on Newsnight tonight. Ambassador Thayil, if I can come to you first. In your estimation, is cyberspace the new frontier in China's relations with the other countries, and that's a cause of friction around the world as we speak?
Very much so. It is always said that one should not fight yesterday's wars. Tomorrow's war, if unfortunately if it happens, perhaps it will be a cyber war and it can be absolutely devastating. So this, what has been done by us is very, very good by banning 59 apps, because we all know that the Chinese companies are part of the Chinese government. They report to the Chinese government and the Chinese security agencies, and they are not really global. Like a Sundar Pichai or a Satya Nadella can become a head of an American company, Google or Microsoft. Do you think any Indian can become even an executive board member of a Chinese company? We have to be very, very clear. And also, I would say it is a good move because it will free up space for our own IT experts, our own software companies to develop these apps. After all, we have the competence, we have the skill, but somehow, because they were first movers, so the space was crammed. So I would say that on these three counts, it is very important that India is doing it. And all these apps, whichever mobile they are on, all the data becomes available to Chinese, and these are used by our officers, by our armed forces people, by our journalists, so they will know exactly what is going on in India. So we have to be very careful, very watchful, but I would again say that we have to have our own apps, and we should, it's right that we have banned the Chinese apps, but our endeavor should be that entire domain, end to end, the software should be developed in India, the server should be in India. Only then India's security can be fully guaranteed.
Absolutely fair point there, Ambassador Thayil. And if I can go to my guest, Professor Pant, one last time on Newsnight tonight. And Professor Pant, your thoughts on India-China trade ties, in particular in light of recent developments along the LAC. In your estimation, is it time for India to turn on the screws, so to speak, and impose costs on China going forward as well? In other words, to hurt China when it hurts them the most?
Yes, absolutely. See, India and China for a long time, in fact, the Chinese have argued that let's keep the border issue in abeyance, let's keep talking about the border issue while we develop our relationship in other spheres, particularly in trade. And in trade, India went along with it. India decided that that's a good way of using Chinese economic growth to its own advantage. But what we saw was that an exploitation of the terms of agreement, because essentially Chinese do not play a fair game. So in a sense, they have been exploiting our markets, our openness, while not giving us access in areas where we deserve to get access, where we have a competitive advantage. And the result is what you were discussing earlier. The trade deficit has been expanding, which is now, thankfully, after great effort, is narrowing down. So what we are now looking at is a relationship with China on an equal footing, on basis of reciprocity. And in particular, we don't want China to invest in sectors which are of critical strategic importance. The coming
Right.
the coming century is going to be of Industrial Revolution 4.0, is going to be about emerging technologies, and there India should have an independent base of its own. We should
Right.
not be dependent on China, and that's a message I think that the government is sending out with its recent moves that it has made in the direction of trade and commerce.
All right, Professor Pant and Ambassador Thal, thank you for that fascinating conversation and insights, sharing your insights with our viewers on NewsNet. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.